was not meant to happen. This could not happen. This is happening.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to another episode of The Coach's Son Parks the Bus, where we have special guests on. I don't think you're going to get more special than what we've got on today. This is a big guest. You're not going to get bigger. Everyone thought you're not going to get bigger than what you've got. We've got Arthur Diles. Arthur Diles, Melbourne Victory assistant coach. Welcome, Arthur Diles, to The Coach's Son Parks the Bus.
Hello, mate. Welcome, mate. Welcome.
What a pleasure to be here. Absolute pleasure.
Absolutely. Tell us a bit about yourself, Arthur. What are you doing with yourself? Obviously, you mentioned we got Melbourne Victory.
Yeah, well, I'm very fortunate that I've had an opportunity throughout my coaching career to coach each one of you guys. So I've been very fortunate.
Absolutely.
That's paved the way for me, right? So from humble beginnings there. So Adam was first, huh? Adam was first, by the way.
Yeah.
That was my second coaching gig, huh? Fraser Park. Fraser Park.
It was.
Then we had Gladesville. So then I got the Zagarises. So I was lucky to coach the Zagarises. So I've been very privileged, very fortunate to coach some great players over the years.
Absolutely.
Starting with you three.
And great people.
Yeah,
Not
and
just
great
players.
people, absolutely. and great people. So look, it's been a great journey. It's been a long journey. It hasn't happened overnight, that's for sure. But it's been really enjoyable, and going through the steps that most people have to take, unless you're a really big name, you just get thrown into coaching positions because of your name. But I haven't been that fortunate yet, so I've had to do the hard yards, and it's got me here so far. So it's been really enjoyable.
Hey, in our eyes, mate, you're a big star already, so don't worry about it. You were 20 years ago.
After this podcast, it's got to shoot you to starting for sure. Absolutely. Like obviously many of us, our footballing passion comes from such a young age. I guess the first question we want to ask you is obviously, where did your footballing passion come from at such a young age?
I was obviously born into a football family. My old man still used to take me, as a 3-year-old or 4-year-old to watch Sydney Olympic training. So I used to watch the Olympic training Park first, and then I used to go watching training at St. George and Helston Park. So from a young age, I was always around football, and obviously when my dad was coaching, he was coaching your dad.
Yep.
So I was always at the parks every Saturday and Sunday and midweek at training. So I was pretty much born into that. I just had a real passion for it from a very young age. So I think that's what put me in the love of the game, to be fair. So.
Yeah, I think it is from many of us, obviously from our parents, uncles, aunties and stuff like that. We see them, whether it be watching football, take us to football, us watching them as well. And then we just think, I want to do that too. And then it's kind of like we've got no choice. But I tell you what, there's not many other better choices out there other than football to follow.
No, absolutely. And I couldn't picture my life without it. So, irrespective of where it's taken in terms of a career path, I think regardless, I'd still be a mad football fan and be watching football all the time. So I don't think that would change. I'm just fortunate that I get paid for it now. So that's the only
bonus.
That's a bonus, yeah.
That's so right. We're not paying Arthur, by the way, because obviously like he said, we paved the way for him to get to where he is. So that's enough payment for him.
You had mentioned some of your coaching roles, so you found yourself in some big clubs here in Australia. When the next coach role that might come up, what's your motivation for picking that specific role? Is it people, location, or values of the club, or is there anything specific?
There's nothing really that I'm looking at, to be honest with you. I've been fortunate so far that things have just popped up and they've actually landed where it's places that I'd love to go, or people I'd love to work with or under. And there's no real goal ahead of me at the moment. So okay, I specifically want to be at this club or that club. At the moment, I'm at probably the biggest club in Australia, and I don't see myself not being here in the near future. So I don't look beyond that. I'm very comfortable in this role, very happy in this role. And I love working with Tony and the rest of the staff. And at the moment, it's been a great year. Yeah, hopefully I'm here for many more years to come. But unfortunately, I can't predict that, and can always change at the drop of a hat. But at the moment, I'm really enjoying Melbourne Victory, and yeah, I see my future here, or my short-term future at least here, and that's all I'm looking forward to at the moment.
Yeah, amazing. So this is a bit of a broader question, but you're coming from a few Australian clubs that you've worked for. What's your sort of view now, being at those clubs for a little while now with Australian football? Do you see somewhat progression? I think you've been firsthand and seen that firsthand. Do you see progression? Do you see, obviously Europe is the bigger picture, but do you see Australia working towards that? Is there anything that maybe they could improve on to some degree?
Yeah, look, Europe is the pinnacle, obviously. So it's like anything. It's like if you're an actor, you want to be in Hollywood. If you're a footballer, you want to be in Europe. So Australia's obviously not Europe and never will be Europe, but I think it's got a part to play in world football. I think Australia's a country that should forever and a day be looking just to produce players and sell players and try and bring in money into the country through transfer fees and on-selling players and production of players. So that's where I see Australia in the landscape of world football. I think it's constantly evolving and improving. I think this year and last year is probably the most game time that players under the age of 23 have had regular game time in the A-League. And I think a reward of that has been the amount of transfer fees that have come into Australia in the last 24 months has probably been more than it's probably ever had. So, some people might look at the A-League and talk negatively about crowds declining or the TV coverage. But the reality is that there's a lot of younger players playing right now, and clubs are selling players. And between, if you just look at Central Coast Mariners and you look at Adelaide, for example, over the past 2 years, they've probably generated $10 million worth of transfers, which is a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I think that's where Australia fits in the landscape of world football, and I think these current economic restraints that we're faced with in terms of TV money going down or all that sort of stuff, I think it paves the way for more younger players to get even more game time. You can look at it as a negative in terms of money coming in through TV, but then you can look at it as a positive where it's a potential for clubs to give opportunities to younger players and hopefully sell them.
Yeah, I think you make a good point there, obviously, with the game being so young as well, giving opportunities to young players too, because we mentioned on the pod so many times that young kids growing up today only know the A-League, and I think it's only going to get bigger and better as it goes on. I mean, for me personally as well, like I still remember the old NSL, right? But kids growing up today only know the A-League, so if we can try and encourage them to get to games, to watch the games on TV, and obviously they're already participating because it's the highest participated sport in the country. It's just going to get bigger and better, I think. And obviously, given those opportunities now to younger players, I think it sees that, that step up for those players that sit in an NPL club, go, you know what, that could be me next as well.
That's right. And that's, every young player is always looking for an idol or someone to look up to. And the more players that they can familiarise themselves with in the A-League, then the bigger the A-League will become, because that'll make them want to go and watch a game on the weekend, not just a soccer peruse. Player at Sydney FC, if you're from Sydney, or Melbourne Victory or Adelaide, like you look at Adelaide and Irukunda, for example, he became a household name in Australia, and he's massive in Adelaide, right? And he's got a cult following.
Yeah,
and you're talking about a 17, 18-year-old young player. So I think the more of those that we have, the more interest it creates, and I suppose that'll put those on seats as well.
Yeah, definitely. You want some A-League players on the wall behind you, like young kids. You don't want your rugby league. You don't want AFL stars in the background. You want some proper A-League stars on there. I just wanted to touch on, obviously you've been around Australian football for a long time, 20 plus years. The step up from NPL to A-League, what's the difference in quality and professionalism?
Look, there's a significant step up, and there's a gap, and that's naturally there's going to be a gap because one's amateur and part time, and the other one's professional and full time. So you can't replicate a professional environment unless you're in it. That's the reality. You can train on your own, put some extra sessions on, and go to the gym and have a private coach, but the reality is you can't replicate the professional environment. So in that regard, that's what makes the gap. But in saying that, there's a lot of players, I believe, in the NPL who can be playing in the A-League without a shadow of a doubt. Those players generally would need 6 to 12 months just in the environment to acclimatise and get used to the tempo, the speed, the physical demands, having to back up on a day-to-day basis. So the problem is some people get an opportunity and within the first 6 months they get disregarded because they're like, okay, this kid's not at that level or he's fallen short. But actually, the acclimatisation, they need at least 6 to 12 months in the environment before they can even show anything. And that's a mistake some clubs might make where they make a decision too early on a player, whether he's young or mid to early to mid 20s. They haven't given him enough time to build his body up to be able to take the demands of professional football when they haven't been used to that. So, we had a player this year that I had worked with him at the Wanderers. He had played young Socceroos and Joeys and ended up getting the first grade contract at the Wanderers back then, but never kicked on and played first grade. And then a few years later was down back in NPL playing for Apia. And when we needed a young midfielder, a squad player on a scholarship, we brought him in to train. And within a month he had signed and he had gone from Apia to, playing for Melbourne Victory. And that's just a testament to him. But it's also, it shows all the other players in the NPL, if they've got, motivation and ambition, then there's an opportunity for them.
The bit of extra work. Do you think that maybe there's one of the differences, obviously, us compared to those European countries where the kids over in those European countries, being those late teenage years, they're surrounded by a more professional environment and doing things on a regular daily basis more than what our kids here are doing?
Yeah, I think they're exposed to professional setups earlier, and the demands of, just for example, you can look at all over Europe. If there's a kid 14, 15, 16 years old, doesn't matter what division he's playing in usually, he'll be training 4 to 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And he'll be playing, 30 to 40 games a year. And that's just standard. That's stock standard there. Here, it's slowly getting to that point. So I think, NPL youths are training 3 times a week and they probably train for, say, 40-odd weeks. So they're starting to get there. Now they're playing 30-odd, 35-odd games. So we're starting to get there. The problem, I think, here is that you have to go and get extra coaching because your club only trains 3 nights a week. So you go get a private coach here and an academy there, and it's just like one big fruit salad, you know what I mean? You've got to go to too many things just to get what you need, where, ideally the club should just provide that.
It's like
Too many bananas
chocolates, huh? A big box of chocolates too. Well, speaking of obviously young players, I mean, in your eyes, who's the next A-League superstar, do you reckon?
Look, there's I think every club has got, 3 or 4 really talented young players at the moment. You can look across the board, looking at our club, we sold, in January, we had sold a young left fullback, Franco Leno, who had only played, 5 or 6 A-League games off the bench. I think he started 1 and played 3 or 4 off the bench. And clubs ended up selling him within the first 6 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and, he got sold to Scandinavia. And then, for example, we've got a number of young players coming through at the moment. Ryan Teague and Jordi Valadon, Fabian Monge, Valadon, Nish, Villipala, they're all now lose those 3 I just mentioned.
Mm.
And then we've got a couple in the young Socceroos. And then across the board, you go anywhere. Like Sydney FC's got some good young players playing at the moment. You know, Rank and Matthews at the back,
Yeah.
Holman in the midfield. Every club is starting to play more youngsters. So every club's got some talented youngsters there. The only problem is not a lot of them are producing their own. It doesn't matter at the end of the day. You know, if you can at least scout and coach, that's half the battle as well. So there's one part where you develop your own, and there's another part where you've got to scout and poach from other clubs and find the unpolished diamond. So that's all part of recruitment. It's not, you can't just rely on producing your own because, maybe at the moment you might be struggling to find a left fullback, for example, in your academy. Well, then you got to go and find one. So that's where scouting comes in, and there's a whole role to play in that as well. It's not just the ideal world is you've got a number of players for your academy in every position, and you just develop them, but that's not always the case.
How much interaction does your academy have with, say, reserves in your first team?
We've got a lot of reserve team players training with us on a daily basis. So we've got our finger on the pulse. So we work really closely with the staff in the youth team now. And there's always youth team players training with us daily.
Right.
All our young players who are on scholarship or young enough to play NPL, when they don't play in the first team, they go and play NPL on the weekend as well. So that's the way we work. Most clubs work the same way.
How much does the first team dictate, how the youth teams play? Because I hear a lot of, obviously through NPL with the politics and stuff like that. Your under 15 coach is going up, then he just wants to win the game, and he couldn't care less about the development of the player. But you've got the coach and director who's looking at a player for 3-4 years time and wants him to play in a particular way to try and develop him. Does the first team, the reserve grade, have obviously a lot to say and dictate where the youth plays, or is they kind of just left alone to try and win their own games?
Look, every club is different, right? So if I look back at my time at the Wanderers, when I first started in an A-League environment, the whole club was governed off first grade. So we all played the same way, where the same training methods and the philosophy was followed through from first grade to under 13s. The style of play, and we all worked in the same direction. And we reaped the rewards from that, because at that time we probably had the most players out of any other A-League club in the national youth team. So from the Joeys, back at that time we had 5 or 6 players in the Joeys. We had 6 or 7 players in the young Socceroos. We had 2 or 3 in the Olyroos. So we were loading the national teams up with players from the academy at West Sydney. And I think our environment there played a big part in that. We did a really good job there. So that's how that worked. And then obviously at Newcastle Jets was a little bit different in terms of there wasn't that cohesion throughout the club. And you didn't really see, and you still haven't really seen a lot of players in the last 10 years probably come through the Jets, for example, which is, a little bit disappointing, because, you're talking about one club in the whole, Hunter region, and there should be an abundance of talent there that hasn't come through the club and gone on to first grade. So, that's there. And then now you look at Melbourne Victory, and it's at the moment, I think the academy's in a good space right now. It's obviously not where it needs to be still, but it's definitely improved and in a good place. And now you're starting to see, in the last, I think, 2 years, they've sold, 2 or 3 players to Europe already. So and, some younger players coming through, and there's more that will come through next year. So, and here it's again the top end of the academy, the 18s and 21s, 23s, they're pretty much following suit of the first team. And, we're across, what's happening underneath, and we're keeping our eyes on what's happening there to make sure that there's players coming through. And, there's been times throughout the year where we've gone and plucked a kid out of the 16s or 18s to come and train with first grade. So, yeah, he just because he's not in the reserve team doesn't mean that that's the way he has to get to our training. We might have liked something that we saw, We watch them play on the weekend, and we saw this kid's, a talented kid, and we want to reward him, and we bring him up. And we've done that a lot this year. 15 and 16-year-old kids that have trained with the first team, that have bypassed players that are in the youth team. And for us, it doesn't matter. You're only in the youth team sometimes because that's where your age is put you at. But if there's a really talented kid that's 2 or 3 years younger than you, and we want to reward that kid, and we want to have a look at that kid, we'll just bring him in.
That exposure and taste of first grade. Just wanted to touch on as well, you mentioned younger players and inexperienced players take 6 months, 12 months to settle in. Do you think the second division will help that? A bit more exposure and a professional environment?
Well, it's not going to, from my knowledge, it's not going to be professional. So I think it's just going to be a glorified NPL that travels. So unless the clubs are enforced that they have to train 4 times a week, then I can't see that the gap closing, because just because you're going to be in a national competition, if you're still part-time and training like an NPL club, then in the end it's still going to be the same, right? I can't see it changing. It's good that they get to play in a competition that's nationally recognised, but will it close the gap? I don't believe so, unless they train more often. And to my knowledge, it's still going to be a semi-professional competition.
Yeah, and I think at those levels as well, I mean, those 1%ers actually make a big difference. To a lot of people just looking from afar, those 1%ers don't look like much, but when you get to these professional levels, they make such a difference and that's what it is between that jump from NPL to an A-League, that it might only be a small thing where you're training 1 session a week less, but you need that extra session to compete at a higher level.
Yeah, but if you've done that 1 extra session, over 40, 45 weeks,
makes a difference.
For 5-6 years, you're talking about now 250 sessions more.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's 250 professional sessions, not 250 NPL sessions.
Or doing your own thing.
Yeah, it starts to accumulate, and you know what? It's hard to chase after, because then you can be vulnerable to break down from injury, or your body's not used to it. There is a difference, right? So, but it just means that you just got to give these people that 6 to 12 months. If they get there earlier, even better. But the reality is that they're going to need that time to adjust and acclimatise. And I've seen it before where they come in for the first 2 or 3 months, they're flying. You see them really progress physically, and then they crash. They hit a brick wall, and they start to look like they're dead and fatigued, and they're heavy. And that's the next phase of their development. Okay, because now I've got to back this up. This hasn't just been for a week or a month. It's been for 3 months now. My body's starting to, switch off and break down. And so then they've got to get through that. So then you've got to maybe deload them a little bit. And then, then they come up again, And then once they come up again, normally that's them done and they're good to go. That's normally the cycle of how it works.
I don't know. You should see me and Adam on the weekend. We don't train during the week. Putney Rangers always Division 4. No warm up, nothing. I'd go out there.
Hey, speak for yourself, hey. Speak for yourself. Some of these guys in our teams, Arthur, I'm telling you, they don't warm up, mate. 20 minutes in, sub. So I'm telling you, cramp, fatigue, injury, miss the next 3 weeks.
That's what's up, isn't it?
Oh, mate, it's nothing like the glory days, but it is what it is. Question as well. With A-League occasionally bringing in big names, and you had mentioned they're relying on massive transfer fees to come in. Sometimes money being allocated to somewhat big stars that are coming towards their end of career. What's your thoughts on that? Do you think that disrupts what your team might have going on, or do you think, and it's important because then other players get the experience of what these players might have?
Look, that always comes down to who the individual is and what he's brought to the table, right? So your name is one thing, but if you're not going to turn up on a daily basis and show what professionalism looks like and how it works, if you're not going to turn up and show your quality like that, and you're coming here just to collect money, then it's for me a useless exercise.
Yeah.
But if you've got the right players that come in and show show them the way, how they train daily, how they look after themselves pre and post training, how they conduct themselves, how they are in the media, how they perform under pressure. If you got those ones, then obviously there's a lot to gain from that,
Yeah.
And if a name is big enough where they can put bums on seats, then that's a bonus again.
Yeah.
So I think, the A-League's been hit and miss in that regard. There's been some that have been really good, and there's been some that have been not so good.
Mhm.
Even the ones that have been not so good, they've still given the competition worldwide recognition just from having these guys here. So, on the flip side, there's always something to gain from it. It's not always on the field.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Usain Bolt.
It's easy.
Yeah, well, we're going to obviously talk about international big names and stuff like that. A name doesn't get much bigger than Ange Postecoglou. Now, obviously, being a ex-Melbourne Victory coach himself and A-League coach, an Aussie crack in the Premier League, like what kind of an inspiration is that? Like, not only to yourself, but other people around the coaching and A-League spectrum.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, that's something that I assume all Australian coaches look at and firstly admire, because what he's done is paved the way for people to think that their dream can one day become a reality. Because I think, just like when you're a young player, you dream of playing in your national competition, and you dream of playing for your country, or you dream of playing in Europe. I think it's no different as a coach. Once you start to coach at a certain level, you start to think, okay, I'd love to coach one day in the A-League, or I'd love to coach, overseas, or and the fact that he can go and do that just gives people that ambition and motivation that, it can become a reality. Like anything, like a player, it's difficult. It's not easy. And, the chances of you not doing that are highly likely, instead of the chance of you doing that is highly unlikely. We know that, but that doesn't mean you stop and you just, put the tools down and say, okay, that's too hard. That's not going to happen. It might never happen. If you've got ambition and you've got motivation, then you know what? Every day you wake up, you work, and you think, I'm one step closer to getting there, and it's all a mindset. And, at the same time, you have to be realistic as well and think, okay, if I'm 38, 42 years old and I'm coaching MPL 3 first grade and my team is coming second last, and I'm hoping in the next 2 years to coach A-League, well, that's not probably realistic. But so you always have to, take everything into consideration as well, and see the light when the light's there. But, but that's like a player as well, right? Player,
Yeah.
16-year-old, how many times I was getting phone calls of kids playing park football at 16. Someone said, oh, he's really good, he's great, you've got to see this kid over. Okay, well, where's he playing? Okay, he's playing at Hills Hawks. Okay, no problem.
Shout out to our Hills Hawks friends as well.
Why is he playing at Hills Hawks? Because no club's picked, no one's seen his talent, or okay, that could happen. That could be 1 in 1,000, no problem. So, you still might have a look at the kid, or somehow find a way to find more about the kid. But normally, if the kid's played park football from 9 to 16 and he's still playing park football, and he hasn't had any taste of any NPL level or reps, you start to think, okay, well, there could be a reason for that. I won't disregard the kid just yet. I still want to have a look and make my own conclusion, but the chances are that it's highly likely that he's missed the boat somewhere for a reason. But, that's where the reality comes into things.
I think we're still holding on to the light, James? I think we still got a chance.
Also, you got to mention Bloody Rangers, always Division 4, calm down on my just. But anyway, come down to say hello, but it's all right. Well, let's talk about you guys this year. I mean, obviously, Melbourne Victory Flying got a big game this weekend. How proud are you of the efforts of the boys this week and of this year? Sorry, and obviously, what's the plan for the rest of the season? Obviously, to win the comp.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the plan was always there. The first plan was, to try and finish first. We fell a little bit short. We had 12 draws this year, so if only half of those were wins, then we probably would have won the league comfortably, but it wasn't to be. And then this is like another season now. Once you go into finals football, it's a separate season. We gave the players a couple of days off at the end of the season, and just to get ready for what we call a new season now. And we overcame the first one, which was a huge obstacle with the way it happened with 10 men and extra time and being down. And that was a huge win for us, and then that set us up nicely now for this week to go into the semi-finals, two-legged. So that's always interesting. Get to play home and away, and you're 2 games away from a grand final now. So that's the next obstacle that we've got to overcome, and then worry about that.
Yeah, I'll see huge improvement from last year, finishing 11th. Obviously, you weren't there, and you can see straight away the improvement, right? Was this was there something that you identified once you came in, like, okay, this needs to be fixed?
Look, it wasn't for me to identify really. I think Tony he already had identified what he needed to address and fix, and I'm there to support him and some value to what he does as well, and we work really well together. And there's been probably some change to what they've been used to in terms of the style of football this year. I think it's been a little bit more dynamic and aggressive and attacking, and we definitely scored a lot more goals than we did last year. Obviously, we won a lot more games this year as well, but just the football that we've played, and I think a lot of teams didn't expect much from us, knowing what had happened last year, and we came out of the blocks really hard. We started really well, and teams we caught them off guard, and after around 5 or 6, everyone's realised that shit. We've got to watch out for Melbourne Victory. So they started, coming to us or even at home, parking the bus and making it really, really difficult. And it doesn't matter what league you're playing, when you come up against a team every week that's just going to, park the bus and make it really difficult. That's not easy to break down. And but we've overcome it quite often. But, we still could have been better in the game. And that's probably what made us have so many draws and not enough wins at the end of the day. So, but it's definitely something that I think improved from last year to this year, and that also comes with some recruitment as well. Good recruitment, bringing in some good players that helps you play the way you want to play. The squad's younger than it was last year. It's more dynamic. That's what helped.
You've worked with Tony for quite a while. What about his coaching do you really enjoy and like that you want to obviously take from him as well?
Look, I've really enjoyed seeing him evolve as a coach. Because when I started at Wanderers and I was in the academy there, that was his first coaching gig as a head coach, and then I saw him at the beginning, and then I saw him. We worked together in Greece, and I saw him evolve in Greece and deal with foreigners in foreign language and in a foreign country, and saw how he managed that situation and did really well. And then a few years later, I've seen him evolve again here at Melbourne. So, I think you're talking about probably arguably the most successful coach in the A-League on a consistent level, being able to do it with 3 different clubs. That's, in itself a huge achievement. Where Heavy's gone, he's brought success, but he's also evolved, and being able to see him evolve is just a testament to him that, he hasn't just stuck to one formula that's worked at other clubs. I think he's worked differently at every club that he's worked at. And that's what's probably paved the way for him to be successful. And, I think anyone that's a successful coach has evolved and has grown, has just rested on their laurels and continued to do what worked for him 10 years ago. Let's not forget he's won an Asian Champions League.
Yeah,
which for me, that's like Greece winning the Euros. That's once in a lifetime. I can't see that, happening again for an Australian club in my lifetime. I hope I'm wrong, but, and then having 4 grand finals, in the A-League with 2 different clubs, it's
massive.
That's a serious achievement.
Yeah,
that was a big discussion actually we had on the podcast last week because we had fans email in their questions and what was the biggest? Is there a bigger achievement than Greece winning the Euros in 2004? Do you think the Asian Champions League is a bigger achievement, or is there another one such as Tottenham Hotspur in 1901 winning the FA Cup as a non-league team?
Look, it could be Tottenham. Look,
Yeah, we'll just say it's Tottenham.
Could be Tottenham now, actually. 20-something.
could be.
So I think it's time, guys. What do you reckon? Favorite segment
be
of
time.
every
The
podcast.
big question.
What
We,
everyone's been
mentioned-
waiting for.
we had mentioned it to you earlier, Arthur.
When this
But,
goes out, when this
mm.
goes out, people aren't even going to listen to the first half. They're just going to skip straight to this question.
Yeah, but they're not going to go back again and watch the whole
Yeah,
thing,
of course.
obviously. Yeah,
Obviously.
They'll listen to everything that we say.
And then they're going to watch it on YouTube so they can see your beautiful faces.
And on Spotify. Plug it everywhere. Adam, ask the question.
Yeah, do the honours.
It's the Coach's Son nomination. So, Arthur, we had mentioned to you before, it's someone that might have stuck out, potentially someone you thought had big aspirations, didn't sort of make it, someone that might have, given you a hard time at training over the years, someone that just stuck out to you. Yeah, look, you don't have to throw them under the bus, but if you want to...
Someone who goes on for the free kicks and then comes back off again. Someone like that. We've all played with them. We've all coached them.
Oh no! So this is a player, right? Who potentially maybe wasn't good enough to be in the team. Is that what we're saying here?
It's up to you.
Hey, exactly. He's the coach's
It's
son.
an open question.
You look at this bloke. You look at this bloke on the sideline.
Can it be a player that was very talented that just used to piss me off?
Oh, yeah,
Absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yeah, I can see you're already sweating.
that could be Daniel Arzani now, and Daniel when he was 12. So that could be Daniel as well.
I love it.
Daniel, there you go. You're next up, mate, because you've been nominated the coach's son.
Arthur, mate, thank you very much for coming on. It's been amazing. Bit of insight into the A-League and your career.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's been awesome.
Thanks for taking the time out, mate, because obviously big weekend coming up. And
Yes,
Exactly.
yes, big weekend,
Yeah.
big weekend. But nice to chat. Good to touch base with you guys over.
Yeah, you too, mate.
After a few years, and make sure you send my regards to all your families as well, and your parents as well.
Yeah, you too, mate. You
I'll be
too.
watching, mate.
Been a pleasure.
Yeah, you too, mate.
When you're in Melbourne, hit me up.
Absolutely, mate.
Yeah,
We'll do.
for
We'll
sure.
do.
Soon, mate.
We'll be watching this weekend, celebrating for you. Don't you
Yeah.
worry.
Yeah.
Best of luck, mate, for everything.
Make sure you give us a wave to the camera when you're on the camera.
Or lift up your shirt or unbutton your shirt, the coach's son. I want that here.
We'll send him a sticker or something, a mug. Drink on the sideline.
That's a top name, by the way. The coach's son.
Don't worry. Tell Daniel, tell everyone else, tell Tony.
Exactly right. Beautiful. Thank you, mate.
Yeah,
Anyway, thank you again.
All right, gentlemen.
Everyone,
No
that's
problem.
another week of the Coach's Son Parks the Bus. That's episode 4. Tuning in. We'll be back every week. Thanks again, everyone.
This was not meant to happen.